Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking on something that, on the surface, might look really simple.
Almost deceptively so.
Exactly. We're diving into the functional language of what you could call high-stakes, everyday interactions.
Mm.
I mean, if you've ever had that split second of panic when a server comes over and you suddenly can't figure out how to say what you need.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's a serious dietary thing or, just asking for the salt.
Yeah, that moment of, how do I say this right? This deep dive is definitely for you.
We're basically stripping away all the fluff, all the filler language, and we're just zeroing in on pure linguistic efficiency.
Which is so important in a restaurant setting.
It's one of the most common social transactions we have, right?
Right.
But it demands you be precise and polite and practical all at once. If you get it wrong, the whole experience can just sour.
But if you get it right, it's completely seamless. You don't even notice it.
Mm-hmm.
So our source material today has given us what is essentially a master key. It's a
Yeah.
foundational language toolkit. Just 10 phrases, 10 powerful, concise phrases.
And these 10 lines, they basically map out the entire dining experience, from the moment you think about making a reservation all the way to paying the bill.
Right. And our mission here is to go deeper than just listing them. We want to understand why they work so well.
Yeah, what's the function? We're going to be extracting the core communicative leverage of each one. Why is one word, like a modal verb, better than another?
Or why does a certain sentence structure signal politeness versus, say, urgency?
Exactly. We want you to walk away from this with a toolkit that gives you real clarity and, more importantly, confidence in these real-life situations.
Okay, let's do it. We'll unpack this, starting right at the beginning,
Yeah.
Section 1, establishing the groundwork. This is really the planning phase, isn't it?
It is. It's all about using clear language to sort of set the terms of service to open that conversational contract.
The very first interaction. So the first phrase on our list is all about securing your spot. It really shows the power of a clear request. It is, I'd like to book a table for 2 at 7 p.m., please.
What's so fascinating about this one to me is the sheer density of information. I mean, it's packed with critical data, but it's delivered in such a polite and structured way.
Let's break that down. What are the data points?
Well, you've got the party size, 2. You've got the resource you're requesting, a table, and then you have the non-negotiable time element at 7 p.m.
And every single one of those elements is designed to prevent a follow-up question, right?
Exactly. Imagine the alternative. You call up and just say, "Hi, I'd like to book a table."
Right. The very next thing they're going to say is, for how many?
And then,
What time?
and for what day? By front-loading all that information, you're showing that you're prepared, you're communicating functionally at its best.
It's a signal, really.
Yeah.
It signals that you respect their time and that you're ready for the transaction. It's not just a casual inquiry.
And we really need to dig into the linguistic choice here. I'd like to.
The contraction of, I would like to.
Yes. And it's just a beautiful piece of linguistic engineering. It's what we call a conditional desire. It expresses a wish, a want, but it wraps it in politeness, in deference.
I think that word deference is so key, especially in any kind of service environment. If you just called up and said, I want a table for 2 at 7,
Ugh. Yeah.
it sounds so demanding.
Yeah.
It's almost aggressive, isn't it? It feels like you're violating the unspoken social contract of hospitality,
Yeah.
which really depends on courtesy from both sides.
Precisely. And, you could also go the other way. You could say something like, "Can I book a table?"
And what's wrong with that? It sounds polite enough.
Well, technically, you're questioning your ability to do it or your eligibility. The "I like to" structure it's just smarter. It acknowledges that the whole thing is conditional on the restaurant having space.
So it puts the control in their hands where it should be, but it still makes your own intention perfectly clear.
It's collaborative. That's the key. It's not confrontational. It's saying, "Here's my ideal scenario. Can you make it happen?"
So it seems like a core principle of functional language is this idea of efficient deference. You're being polite to avoid any friction in the system.
That's a great way to put it.
And what's really powerful about this is that the structure itself, that template of, I'd like to book X for Y at Z, is completely portable. You can use it anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. It is a universal template for almost any kind of scheduling request. Think about using it at work.
Okay.
I'd like to schedule a review meeting for 3 attendees next Tuesday morning.
Right. All the information is there. You've just cut down the communication chain by, what, 3 or 4 emails of back and forth?
You have. It is the linguistic equivalent of hitting send on an email with all the attachments already included from the very start.
That makes everything so much smoother. Okay, so we booked our table, we're in the restaurant, we're seated, we move from the calendar to the menu.
The next phase of information gathering.
Right. And our second key phrase is all about getting specific, often dynamic information. It is. Could you tell me what today's specials are?
This is such a high leverage question. I love this one. Because specials, by their very nature, are time-sensitive knowledge.
They're not on the permanent record.
Exactly. They often represent the freshest ingredients, the most seasonal stuff, or sometimes it's just a dish the chef is really excited about right now and wants to test out.
So if you don't ask,
Yeah.
you are consciously limiting your own options. You're sticking to the static printed menu and missing out on what could be the best thing they have that day.
You're leaving value on the table, so to speak.
Literally. And again, the structure we use to ask this question is so crucial. We're using the modal verb could. The difference in social grace between could you tell me and just a blunt what are the specials is.
Yeah.
It's massive.
It's night and day. Because the word could softens the whole request. It implies you're asking about the server's capacity or the possibility for them to perform the action.
Not just demanding the information.
Right. We often teach that can is about ability and could is about possibility, but in modern functional English, could has really become the go-to for polite requests. It just sounds less demanding than can.
What if you said, would you tell me the specials?
It's a subtle difference, but would can sometimes sound like you're questioning their willingness to tell you, rather than just making a simple request for information. Could is inherently gentler.
It respects the fact that they're probably busy, right? They might be juggling 3 other tables and need a second to recall the list of specials.
That's the social awareness that the sources are really highlighting. Socially aware English. Asking politely is what unlocks this high-value information.
And there's a real aha moment here for you, the listener. Asking about the specials tells you something about the kitchen's priorities for the day.
Oh, absolutely. If they're featuring a specific fish, like a branzino, you can be pretty sure that branzino came in fresh this morning. It's a backdoor way to do quality control on your own meal.
It's a tiny investment for a big payoff. You spend 3 seconds asking one polite, well-structured question, and you get access to the best stuff they have.
Precisely.
So we've gone from booking to gathering information. Now let's move into actively asking for tailored advice. This is where our next phrase comes in, and it's all about conversational range. What would you recommend for someone who prefers something light?
This is where the interaction really evolves, isn't it? We are shifting the transaction from a simple order-taking process into a consultation.
And the key is that the speaker isn't asking that terrible, vague question.
The conversational pitfall.
What's good?
Exactly. What's good here? It's the worst question. Instead, they are providing a specific, limiting piece of context. That preference, something light. That's the magic ingredient.
Because if you just ask what's good, what are you doing? You're forcing the server to become a mind reader.
You are. You're asking them to guess your tastes, your mood, your dietary needs, your budget, all from a single question. It's an impossible, undefined equation.
And the answer you get back is almost always uselessly subjective. They'll just say, oh, the pasta's really popular.
Right. But by providing that one constraint, prefers something light, you've given the service staff the crucial data point they need to apply their expertise.
They know the menu. They know which dishes are swimming in heavy cream, which ones are fried, and which ones are grilled or, broth-based.
They can immediately filter the entire menu, in their head, down to 2 or 3 viable candidates for you, instantly.
It shows you understand that this is a collaboration. You're basically saying, look, I know you have specialized knowledge of this menu, and I'm giving you the criteria I need you to apply to help me make a smart choice.
And this just elevates the whole functional relationship. You've moved from transactional, please bring me food, to consultative, help me navigate these options for the best possible outcome.
Which, of course, results in a much happier customer. You're making sure the recommendation you get is actually tailored to you, not just what they sell the most of.
And can we talk about the power of the word would in that question? What would you recommend?
Yes, let's. It's another one of those modal verbs doing a lot of work.
It's the perfect hypothetical structure. You're asking for advice based on their professional judgment. It frames it as a request for their expertise, which is actually quite flattering to the server.
It acknowledges their role is more than just carrying plates. They are a guide to the experience.
It positions them as a professional guide through the menu, not just a human ordering pad.
So by the end of this first phase, if we've used these phrases, We've set the terms, we've gathered high-value info, and we've gotten a custom recommendation. We are communicating effectively and I think gracefully.
Absolutely. But now we have to pivot. We're moving into section 2, which is, I would argue, the most critical area of functional language we're going to discuss.
This is high-stakes communication. This is where your needs become a necessity, and it often has to do with health and safety.
These are the phrases that are completely non-negotiable. They have to be clear, they have to be concise, and they must leave absolutely no room for misinterpretation.
Okay, let's start with the one for broad dietary categories. The core phrase here is, do you have any vegetarian or gluten-free options?
This is foundational communication for your own well-being. This has moved beyond simple preference. This is about establishing the medical or ethical baseline for what you can eat.
And the restaurant needs to know this information up front. It helps them guide you efficiently and, frankly, protects them as well.
And the structural importance here is in that incredibly efficient binary question format. Do you have X or Y?
We're not asking an open-ended question like, so, what can I eat?
Which would be a nightmare for a busy server. By focusing on known, standardized catering categories, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, you are tapping into systems the kitchen probably already has in place.
You're streamlining the whole process. You prompt a simple yes or no, which is then followed by the specifics.
Yes, we have several. The risotto, the grilled vegetable platter, and we can adapt the fish dish. It respects their time while guaranteeing you get the info you need without a long, meandering conversation.
It's interesting to think about how service language has evolved here. Maybe 20 years ago, this kind of question might have been seen as awkward or demanding.
For sure. But now, because standardized dietary needs are so common, most professional kitchens have protocols ready to go. Your job as the customer is to activate those protocols with the most efficient language possible.
And that phrase, do you have, is doing critical work. It's an inquiry into the existence of the option.
That's a great point. You're not saying, are you able to make me something vegetarian? That would imply a special off-menu request that might cause stress in the kitchen.
Right. Do you have, just assumes the infrastructure is already there, which more and more it is.
You're testing the system's pre-existing capability before you commit to ordering. It's like asking a bus driver, does this bus go downtown? You don't ask, can you please drive me in the general direction of downtown?
You check the system's defined function first. It's just smart.
And we just can't overstate the urgency here. We talk a lot about politeness in functional language, but in this context, clarity equals safety. The ability to state these constraints quickly and clearly is fundamental to your health.
But sometimes checking a broad category like vegetarian isn't enough. You have to get more granular.
Much more granular.
And that brings us to the next level of precision, which is asking about specific and potentially life-threatening ingredients. The phrase is, does this dish contain any nuts?
This is a direct, critical surgical check. This moves way beyond general categories and into absolute ingredient verification.
So the difference between asking, do you have gluten-free options, and does this specific pesto contain nuts is?
It's the difference between setting general boundaries for your visit and checking a specific package for a bomb. One is about planning, the other is about immediate safety.
And let's focus on that verb, contain. It seems like such a specific and important choice. Why contain versus, say, have or is this made with?
Contain is the gold standard verb in the world of food safety and chemical analysis. It's definitive. If I ask, does this dish have nuts? The server might think, are there whole nuts sprinkled on top that I can see?
Okay, so a visual check.
Right. If I ask, is this made with nuts? They might only think about the primary ingredients, but contain implies a verifiable presence of that ingredient, even down to trace amounts in a sauce or the oil it was cooked in.
It demands an absolute yes or no answer. And in a high-stakes scenario like a severe allergy, ambiguity is your worst enemy.
It is. The structure, does X contain Y, leaves zero room for misinterpretation. It forces the server to do one of two things. Either give you a definitive answer they are 100% sure of,
or, and this is the critical part,
go back and verify, go ask the chef. It activates the proper internal protocol for a safety check.
And that's often the real goal of good functional language, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not just getting a quick answer, but making sure the right process is followed on the other end.
Precisely.
Hmm.
Now, we do need to add a crucial point of clarification here for anyone listening with a severe allergy.
Yes, this is important.
Even with perfect language, you have to understand the limits of what a server can guarantee regarding cross-contamination.
That's a huge point. So even if they come back and say, the chef confirms the sauce does not contain nuts, if you have a severe airborne allergy, that doesn't mean the kitchen environment itself is safe.
Correct. They might use the same utensils, the same cutting boards, the same deep fryer. Your perfect functional language gets you the ingredient list for that dish, but it can't solve the much larger logistical reality of a busy shared kitchen space.
So this inquiry is designed to trigger the maximum caution from the staff, but it's not a magic bullet.
It's not, but it's the best tool you have. It's concise, it's authoritative, and it signals that this is a serious medical issue, not just a preference. The stakes are as high as they get, so the language has to be maximally utilitarian.
Okay, so we have the tools for setting our boundaries with categories and for absolute safety checks on specific ingredients. Now that we've established our ground rules, let's move into Section 3.
Executing the transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the logistics phase, placing the order and managing your immediate comfort during the meal.
We've done our research, we've made our choice, now it's time to act.
And this requires that efficiency of politeness we talked about. The standard perfect phrase is, I'll have the grilled salmon, please.
It's like a linguistic handshake, isn't it? It's concise, it's polite, and it's definitive. It just streamlines the entire service process.
The server doesn't want you to hedge, do they? They don't want, I'm thinking about the salmon.
No, they want a decision. They want an instruction they can take directly to the kitchen or the point-of-sale system.
So let's break down that structure again. I'll have. That's the contraction of I will have. What function is that performing?
It's what linguists call a performative utterance. The moment you say the phrase, the action is considered to be initiated. It signals finality. The decision has been made.
It's the difference between I think I might want the salmon, which sounds really tentative and keeps the conversation open.
And I'll have the salmon, which clearly signals, my deliberation is over, please execute this command. It is a clean, efficient transfer of intent into action.
I do wonder, though, does this push for efficiency sometimes close off other options? Should we ever deviate from that structure? What if you need a modification?
That's a great question.
Like, what if you want to say, can I get the salmon, but I'd like to swap the potatoes for broccoli?
In that scenario, you use this definitive phrase as your anchor, and then you add the modification as a polite secondary request.
Okay, so walk me through that.
You'd say, I'll have the grilled salmon, please. You've locked in the core order. Then you add, and could I possibly get the vegetables instead of the potatoes? You maintain the definitive nature of the order, but you're tacking on a polite contingent request.
Using that same could I have structure we've already established works so well.
Exactly. So, I'll have is the functional core of the order, and that little word, please, is the essential social lubricant that ensures the command is received graciously.
Without please, even I'll have the salmon can sound a little clipped, a little dismissive.
It's the bare minimum of courtesy required to keep that social contract intact. The big takeaway here is what you could call transactional mastery. When you use this phrase correctly, you signal confidence, you signal preparedness, and you signal respect for the flow of service.
You're ready to move on? Perfect. So the order is in, maybe the food has even arrived. But then comes that moment we all have where we realize we need something extra.
An immediate need.
Right. Which brings us to our next phrase for practical needs. Could I have some extra napkins and a glass of water?
This phrase is just a masterclass in what I'd call diplomatic interruption, because that's what you're doing. You are disrupting the server's workflow, and that requires language that is both specific and deferential.
Let's start with the specificity. I notice the phrase isn't just, can I get napkins? We're asking for extra napkins.
Yes. That one little word is doing so much work. It acknowledges that you probably already have a napkin, but you require more. Maybe you spilled something. It prevents the server from having to come over, assess the table, and ask, oh, you don't have a napkin.
You've anticipated their question and provided the answer in your request.
And again, we're back to that incredibly versatile structure. Could I have? It is the most flexible, polite way to request something you need right now, mid-service. It works for a clean fork, more bread, another drink, anything.
If we just use a direct command here, an imperative, like bring me more water.
It would be considered so rude in almost all English-speaking service cultures.
So we use this question format, the interrogative structure, as a sort of polite disguise for what is essentially a command.
We are asking for permission to receive an item, and that gives the server the social space to acknowledge the request and act on it. The psychology of interruption really matters here. Well, by using could I have, you're acknowledging that they are busy. If they're walking by with 4 hot plates, they can just give you a quick nod to show they heard you and then come back when their hands are free.
Whereas if you use demanding language, you might force them into an awkward verbal exchange right then and there, or you just risk coming across as incredibly impatient.
So the functional goal here is twofold. First, get the practical thing you need, the napkins, the water. Second, maintain a good diplomatic relationship by respecting the server's workload. This phrase is the optimal balance of both.
Okay, so we've established the terms, we've checked for safety, we've placed our order efficiently. Now we have to move into what might be the trickiest part of this whole interaction. Section 4.
Resolution and feedback.
This is where we cover troubleshooting and, ultimately, the closure of the meal.
This is where you really earn your functional communication stripes, I think.
I agree, because dealing with a problem requires some serious diplomatic language. The core phrase we have for problem solving is, "Excuse me, my order seems to be incorrect. Could you check it, please?"
This phrase is a perfect 3-step linguistic shield. It's designed to maximize how quickly you get a resolution while minimizing any sense of confrontation.
It's really the exact opposite of most people's gut reaction when a mistake happens, which is usually to get flustered and accusatory.
Let's break it down meticulously. Part 1, excuse me.
The entry point.
It's the required signal for a polite interruption. It demands attention, but it does so without aggression. It's the necessary prelude to breaking into their service flow for an unscheduled issue.
Okay, part 2. And I think this is the most masterful part of the whole phrase. My order seems to be incorrect.
Yes, let's focus on those 2 words, seems and incorrect. By using the word seems, you introduce this subtle, tiny element of doubt, even if you are 100% certain that they brought you the wrong dish.
This is brilliant. You're avoiding a direct accusation. You're framing it as, hey, perhaps I misunderstood, or perhaps there was an error. Let's figure this out together.
You've turned it into an objective problem to be solved collaboratively, not a personal failing.
And the word incorrect is so neutral. You didn't say, you messed up my order, or this is the wrong food. You're just stating an objective discrepancy. You focused on the error itself, not the person who might have made it.
And that distinction is absolutely paramount for effective troubleshooting in any context, not just a restaurant. It allows the server to save face. It reduces their natural defensiveness, which in turn makes them much more willing and able to fix the issue quickly.
Because if they feel personally attacked, their first instinct is to defend themselves, and the resolution process grinds to a halt.
It slows down dramatically. And then that brings us to the 3rd step. Could you check it, please? This is the specific, structured request for action. You're not demanding they fix it immediately. You're asking them to verify the situation first.
Which perfectly aligns with their internal process. They have to go back to the ticket, confirm the mistake, before they can authorize the kitchen to remake a dish.
So this whole diplomatic approach is really the hallmark of sophisticated communication under a bit of stress. We all seen the alternative, right?
Oh yeah, the diner who flags down a server and just shouts, "Hey, this is wrong. I ordered the steak, not the chicken."
That approach just immediately puts everyone on the defensive. It makes the whole process hostile. This diplomatic version achieves the exact same outcome, getting the correct dish, but it does so with grace and almost always with more speed.
The moment you introduce personal blame, the interaction shifts from service to negotiation. And that's a costly shift in time and, morale.
This structure avoids that entirely. The ability to control your tone and use this kind of descriptive, non-accusatory language when something goes wrong is one of the highest leverage communication skills you can possibly acquire.
Okay, so that's problem solving. But what about just giving general feedback? Whether the experience was amazing or just a little flawed, you need the right words.
This is where descriptive language and tone control are absolutely essential.
Let's start with the positive case. The phrase is simple. Everything was delicious. Thank you.
It's simple, it's concise, and it's incredibly functional. A positive feedback loop is so important in service. It's not just about being polite, it actually validates the hard work of the entire team, from the kitchen to the front of house.
It reinforces good behavior.
It does. We're so often focused on fixing problems that we forget that functional communication also has to include reinforcing positive outcomes. A simple, genuine compliment makes the server feel good, it makes the chef feel good, and it ensures they remember you pleasantly.
Which can even impact your service on future visits if you're a regular customer.
It creates a positive institutional memory. When staff feel seen and acknowledged, they tend to provide even better service. That's the real functional outcome of genuine praise.
But now for the much trickier part, constructive criticism. This requires some serious finesse. The example phrase we have is, "The soup was a bit too salty for my taste."
This sentence is a beautiful piece of linguistic architecture designed for safe critique. There are two essential qualifiers in there that transform what could be a condemnation into a subjective and manageable observation.
Let's break those down. First, the qualifier, a bit.
A bit immediately signals that the issue is minor. It's not a catastrophic failure of cooking. If you say, "This soup is inedibly salty," you're making an aggressive objective claim about the chef's professional quality. A bit just softens that entire blow.
It lowers the stakes of the feedback.
Exactly. And second, and this is the most critical part, is the framing phrase, "for my taste."
Ah, yes. This is the key that unlocks their ability to accept the criticism.
It is. By stating that the problem is relative to your taste, you completely avoid making an objective accusation against the chef's skill or the restaurant's standards. You are simply stating a personal data point. My palate specifically found this level of sodium to be high.
It's the difference between saying, "This soup is bad," which is an insult,
Yeah.
and saying, "I personally am not enjoying this soup because of my preference for less salt," which is actually helpful feedback.
And sophisticated communicators know that feedback has to be usable. If you give angry, subjective, accusatory feedback, it just gets dismissed. It's written off as, "Oh, another angry customer."
But if you provide specific, framed feedback, the temperature was perfect, the vegetables were cooked beautifully, but the broth was just a bit too salty for my taste, that becomes a data point that a professional kitchen can actually use.
You can even apply this structure to other nuanced critiques. If the chicken was a bit dry, you wouldn't say, "The chef ruined this chicken."
No.
You'd say, "The chicken was maybe a touch dry for my preference, but the sauce it came with was absolutely exceptional." You can sandwich the critique between positive observations to maintain that overall diplomatic control.
So mastering the language for both praise and critique is essential. It shows you're a discerning customer who understands the process, and they're much more likely to take your input seriously.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've resolved any issues, we've given our feedback, and now we are ready to leave. We're at the final essential transaction, asking for the check. The phrase is, "Could we have the bill, please?"
This phrase is the universal signal for closure. It is the official, polite way to transition the interaction from the realm of food service into the realm of finance and payment.
I want to dig into that word "we" for a second. Why is it so common to say, "Could we have the bill?" even if you're dining all by yourself?
It's a fascinating quirk, isn't it? It's a kind of institutional politeness, a standardized formality that has become so ingrained that it actually supersedes the literal number of people at the table.
So it's part of the ritualized language of dining out.
It is. When you say "we," you're sort of aligning yourself with the general unspoken rules of the institution. It's subtly less abrupt than "could I have the bill?" which can sometimes sound a little impatient or demanding, especially if you were dining alone.
It just maintains that polite, diplomatic tenor that we've been working to establish throughout the whole meal.
Right. And you compare that to some of the blunt ways people ask, shouting "check" across a room or, doing the little air signature mime.
The check signing gesture, yeah.
Those might get the job done, but they lack any kind of grace or functional elegance. The structure "could we have" is, once again, that polite modal verb in a question format, masking what is actually a definitive request.
It signals to the staff that they can now shift their focus for your table from maintenance refilling water, clearing plates, to financial closure.
It is the final, clean, efficient piece of communication needed to conclude the entire service contract. It just wraps the whole experience up neatly and politely and lets them know the table is about to be free for the next guests.
When you look back at all 10 of these phrases, from "I'd like to book" to "Could you tell me?", "I'll have," and finally, "Could we have the bill?"
You realize they really do form a complete linguistic operating system for navigating a very complex social environment. Every single word is chosen for maximum leverage and minimum friction.
We started this by saying it was a high-leverage deep dive, and that is exactly what we found. We've analyzed this comprehensive toolkit that can really transform what can be an anxious, transactional environment into a smooth, predictable, and pleasant interaction.
We covered it all. Setting expectations with a clear reservation, ensuring your health and safety with surgical precision in your dietary checks.
Mastering the logistics of the actual order, and then diplomatically troubleshooting any issues that come up with non-accusatory language.
The ultimate takeaway here, I think, isn't just about memorizing these 10 phrases, although that certainly helps.
No, it's about something deeper.
It's about fundamentally understanding the functional objective of every single thing you say in that environment. Are you trying to seek clarification? Are you stating a non-negotiable necessity? Are you troubleshooting an error? Or are you signaling closure?
Because when you focus on that goal, the most efficient and polite structure almost just presents itself to you naturally.
Exactly. The structure is designed for maximum clarity, ensuring your needs are met quickly and gracefully. These 10 phrases are really the foundation for building real communicative control.
Okay, so for our final provocative thought, something for you to take with you and explore beyond the dinner table. If these 10 concise, carefully structured phrases can manage almost every situation in the complex social and transactional world of a restaurant, where else in your daily life could you apply this same structural thinking?
Think about the regular choke points in your own communication. Maybe it's managing expectations with your colleagues at work. Maybe it's writing a complicated customer service email, or even trying to initiate a difficult conversation with a family member.
Try to identify the 5 or maybe 10 high-leverage phrases for that specific context. The ones that, if you practice them with the same precision and politeness we've talked about today, could solve your specific information gaps and dramatically improve your outcomes.
What's the next linguistic toolkit you need to build? That's the real application of this knowledge.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.